There's a formula that gets repeated for each of the 4 types of right effort: preventing unskillful qualities, abandoning them if they do arise, giving rise to skillful ones, and then maintaining the skillful ones when they've arisen. In each case, you're supposed to generate desire and activate persistence, or activate your energy, for each of the 4. And generating desire and activating persistence are pretty similar. In both cases, you have to use heedfulness. When the Buddha talks about arousing your energy or overcoming laziness, he focuses mainly on the narratives you're telling yourself about how tired you are, or how you're going to be tired tomorrow, so you better rest up today. Some of the cases are, you've been on a journey, and the lazy part of you says, well, I've been on this journey, I'm tired, I need to rest. And the more active and heedful part of the mind has to remind yourself, hey, while I was on my journey, I couldn't practice as fully as I can now that the journey is over. Or if you've been sick and just recovered, the lazy part says, oh, I need to rest up some more before I really get serious about the practice. The more energetic part says, look, while I was sick, I couldn't practice, and I could have a relapse at any time. I better practice now. The same for when you've had too much to eat or too little to eat, or you're about to go on a journey. In each case, the external circumstances are the same. It's the narrative you tell yourself. And what's behind the narrative, what's driving the narrative. You have to look into that. One of the important aspects of activating persistence or activating your energy is finding where your energy is right now. If you find yourself meditating and dozing off, getting drowsy, someplace inside will say, well, it's a sign I'm really tired, I need to go back and rest. You go back and you find something to read, and then you find yourself staying up late till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock reading something. Where did the energy come from? It was there. And so for the persistence to get activated, you need the desire that you really do want to do this. And the problem is we tend to get overcome both by pain and unpleasant things and by pleasure or pleasant things that happen. If the meditation isn't going well, say, well, maybe tonight's just not going to work, let's give up. Or if the meditation is going well, the breath feels comfortable, everything feels nice, and you just kind of drift off into a nice little never land. So in either way, the pain and the pleasure overcome the mind, overcome your energy. And this, as the Buddha said, is an important part of the practice. He once told a wanderer that ever since he had left home, he had never allowed his mind to be overcome by pain, overcome by pleasure. And the wanderer said, well, maybe it's because you never experienced any really great pleasure or pain. And the Buddha said, well, why? Why wouldn't that be the case? And then he went on and described all the torment he went through, those 6 years of austerities. And then after he realized that the austerities weren't taking him anywhere, then the pleasure that came when he got his mind into concentration, and he gained lots of different insights, memory of previous lives way back, visions of the whole universe, and all the beings dying and being reborn. And in each case, he said he didn't allow the pleasure to overcome his mind. This, he said, is what it means to be developed in body and mind. We think of developed in body as somebody who goes down and lifts weights or whatever, but that's not what the Buddha meant. Developed in how you deal with pleasure and pain in the body, how you deal with pleasure and pain in the mind. In other words, you don't let yourself get discouraged by the pain. and you don't let yourself just melt into the pleasure, wallow in the pleasure. When that comes up in the meditation, when there's pain in the part of the body, or there's an emotional pain in the mind, you learn how to work around it. And John Lee has the image of someone digging down into the soil and running into a huge rock. And some people just give up and think, well, there must be rock everywhere under the soil. But if you realize, well, there's rock in some places and not in others, you sort of dig a little bit here and dig a little bit there and try to find your way around the rock. Because, as he says, there's diamond buried underneath the rock. So when you're working with the breath in the body, and you find that you come up to an area of pain, try to use that as a focal point. It's important that you do make use of whatever pleasure you do get from the breath, because if you're focusing just on the pain, it gets wearisome after a while. You just run out of energy. This is one of the secrets to activating your energy, which is knowing where your strong points are. What you've already got, that can be used as fuel for your energy, a sense of well-being, a sense of fullness in the breath. Always make sure you're coming from that as you focus on the pain. And try to notice, where are you in relationship to the pain? Are you above the pain or below the pain? Does the pain seem to be like a barrier? Can you get your awareness around the pain on all sides, and then you can get the breath flowing around on all sides? Can you get the breath to permeate through the pain? If working directly with the pain seems to make it worse, try another tactic. Say the pain is in the right hip, you focus on the left hip. The pain is in your stomach, focus on your back. The pain is in your back, focus on your stomach or your chest. In other words, use the pain as an opportunity to develop your ingenuity. Because after all, pain is a noble truth. We learn and we gain progress in the path by comprehending it, and there's no way you're going to comprehend it if you just give up every time you run into it. And throw down your shovel and run away. Similarly with pleasure, you've got to learn how to use a pleasure, not just wallow in it. For most of us, once we run across a little bit of pleasure, that's what we do. We just jump in like a big mud puddle and just wallow around. And it may be pleasant while we're there, but it runs out pretty quickly, especially if you lose your focus. So on the one hand, you've got to remind yourself, this pleasure is not going to last. Let's make use of it. And you learn how to keep on working with the pleasure in the same way that you work and gain a salary, earn a salary, and then you learn how to keep on working even as you're spending the money from your salary to find pleasure. Most of us, so when we meditate, are like the peasants who have their first experience with wage labor. They work for a week, and they get their paycheck at the end of the week, and then they just drop the job and go off and spend their money, disappear until the money's all gone. Then they come back and they want to start up the work again. If that's the kind of meditator you are, you're like that kind of peasant. You're never going to get a raise. You're never going to be regarded as a reliable employee. Same way, to be a reliable meditator, you have to learn how to sit with the pleasure and not get distracted by it. Remember that the pleasure comes from a cause. You've got the mind focused on the breath. You've been able to let go of all your normal worries and concerns. And realize, okay, that's much more pleasant now than it was before. But there's still work to be done. You want to learn how to make that pleasure more reliable. And again, you realize the pleasure comes from the mind's being focused, from its pulling itself out from all of its ordinary concerns, or being concentrated on the breath. So you maintain that concentration. Whatever pleasure fills the body, it will do what work it needs to do. Sometimes we're afraid that if we don't wring every little last bit of intensity out of the pleasure, it's not going to benefit us as much as we want it. But that's not the case. It'll work its pleasure. It'll do its work. refreshing the body, giving you more energy, which you then plow back into the meditation. John Fugan called this investing your merit in more merit, investing your sense of well-being and developing more well-being. But in all these cases, being developed in body, being developed in mind, not letting yourself be overcome by the pleasure or the pain, requires a very strong sense of heedfulness. So the narrative you tell yourself about how much energy you have tonight, how much energy you have right now to put into practice, try to tell yourself a narrative that stirs up the energy, arouses the energy, finds whatever little pockets of energy you have in body and mind, to give rise to the sense that, yes, I can do this. I can stick with it. One of the tricks here is not focusing on anything that's discouraging. Having a sense that whatever comes up, you can handle it. You've got the resources someplace, and you'd be amazed at where you can find them. So the potential for energy is there. Look for it. Learn how to make the most of it. Because it's only when you can maintain that sense of persistence, sticking with it through the pain, through the pleasure, that the centered state of mind becomes normalcy for you. Everything settles in and it feels right. So that leaving this center of normalcy feels abnormal. That's the perspective you want to gain. And it requires energy, but remind yourself you can find it someplace. You can stir it up one way or another. Don't let yourself be heedless.